Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and greetings everyone. How you doing? Are you happy? Are you good? Because I want to know. My name is Amir Rizwan Razali and today I'm going to tell you about 43 basic economics terms with examples. So without further ado, let us begin. So I have my slides ready here, and this is the list of words that we are going to dissect today. And the first word today is economics. So what is economics? Well, economics is a branch of social science that studies how people interact with value. In particular, the production, distribution, and the consumption of goods and services. So economics focuses on the behavior and interactions of economic agents and how economies work. And economics is divided into two, which are macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics, the big one, is the branch of economics dealing with the performance, structure, behavior, and decision making of an economy as a whole. So this is the kind of economy that you see on the news, you know, the picture of a stocks, tabung haji, LRT movie just comes straight to your mind. And macroeconomics tackles issues such as unemployment, GDP, and inflation. While microeconomics is the branch of economics that considers the behavior of decision takers within the economy, such as individuals, households, firms, and companies. So when we talk about supply and demand, when we talk about production possibility curve, that is about microeconomics. So moving on, we are going to talk about the terms that are related with 10 basic principles of economics. So the first word is scarcity. Well, scarcity in simple terms means shortage. It is the basic problem in economics and it is defined as the gap between our unlimited wants and limited resources. So, we have unlimited wants. For example, we want to use the most luxurious cars, the most luxurious gadgets, and eat the most expensive food. But our salary just does not allow that. Our resources, in this case money, is limited and cannot cater to our unlimited wants. Therefore, we have to make a choice. In the perspective of a producer, the problem of scarcity is clearly illustrated in the production possibility curve. This curve shows the combinations possible of the quantities of two products that can be produced. In basic words, we have unlimited resources, but two products requires the same resources. So at this point of the curve, we choose to produce more goods X and less goods Y. And then at this point, we choose to produce more goods Y and less goods X. Due to problem of scarcity, we have to make a choice whether to produce more of good X or more of goods Y. Alright, so next word is trade-off. This term is exactly how it sounds. Trade-off is a situation where one quantity, quality, or property is lost in terms of gain in other aspects. So for example, we really like both vanilla and chocolate cake, but there's only those two cakes, so we choose the vanilla cake. So here we say that we are trading the vanilla cake for the chocolate cake. And the next word is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is defined as the foregone benefit of the next best alternative that would be incurred if the alternative was chosen once a trade-off had occurred. So let's say in addition of vanilla and chocolate cake, there is also a carrot cake, and now you choose the chocolate cake. The vanilla cake would be the opportunity cost because it is the next best alternative for you and not the carrot cake. In production possibility curve, let's say the maximum quantity possible to produce goods X is 110, but this will cause no goods Y to be produced. So if we produce 60 goods Y, we can only produce 90 goods X. So 20 goods X is the benefit loss. So here we say 20 goods X is the opportunity cost to produce 60 goods Y. Alright, so our next word is incentive. This word means exactly the same in the English language as well in economics. So, incentive is anything that motivates a person to do something. An incentive could be good or bad. So for example, a good incentive would be prizes for participants in a competition, price cuts for you to buy more vegetables, or advertisement, banners, and announcement for you to get your vaccine shot. Bad incentives are something that demotivates you to do something. For example, parents punishing their children because of lying. Our next word is externalities. Externalities is cost or benefit incurred by a third party who does not agree to gain it. Just like incentive, externalities can be good or bad. So for example, good externalities would be people wearing perfume because it will reduce the unpleasant smell around you, and people who have taken their vaccine shot because they are reducing the risk of infection among other people. While an example of bad externalities would be motor vehicle users releasing exhaust fumes that will cause air pollution that will affect everyone. So our next word is utility. Utility is just a fancy word for satisfaction or benefit derived by consuming a product. So for example, if you are a BTS fan and you are buying a BTS album, the BTS album will give you so much more utility rather than, let's say, your mom buying a BTS album, because your mom is not a BTS fan. So our next word is marginal utility. Marginal utility in economics means increment of satisfaction when one more unit of goods or services is consumed. So for example, French fries are good when you first eat them, but as you eat more, it gets boring to the point one more bite will give you less satisfaction even though you are still hungry, and when dessert comes, you still finish it. Other examples would be keychain. Buying one keychain is good and it can make your bags look pretty, but once you buy one more, your satisfaction will decrease with each of the purchase of keychain, and it will be useless and just make your bags heavy. Well, marginal change is defined as a proportionally very small addition or subtraction to the total quantity of some variables. So for example, a bus ticket costs you 20 ringgit, but once you get in, there was actually 10 empty seats. Now suddenly someone comes in the last minute and only have 10 ringgit, and it won't cover the cost of the ticket. Should the bus operator let him in? Definitely, it is much more better to make 10 ringgit rather than lost 20 ringgit. Let's talk about productivity, shall we? Well, the definition is very simple. In economics, productivity is defined as the ratio between unit output per unit input. So for example, given that 25 employees work in the whole Coca-Cola factory, then productivity can be calculated by dividing the numbers of bottles of Coca-Cola produced in 1 hour per 25. 25 referring to number of people working there. However, it is very important to consider that there are many factors that can affect productivity. For example, mental health and advancement in technology. So our next word is property rights. Well, the definition of it in economics is pretty much the same as the definition of it in the English language. It is the legal ownership of an individual, household, firms, companies, etc. of a resource or goods. The term can also be extended to mean the construct of how a resource or goods is used. So our next word is equity. Equity is an economic concept of fairness where everyone is given equal life chances regardless of identity. So here in Malaysia, we have so many races. We have Malay, Indian, Chinese, Iban, Kadazan Dusun, Aborigines. So if we follow the concept of equity, everyone in Malaysia shall have the equal rights in taxation or welfare economics no matter their religion and races. Alright, so now let us talk about efficiency. Efficiency is a situation in which nothing can be improved without something else being hurt. So let us take a production possibility curve as our example. So we understand that our resources are limited, and this curve is the possible combination of numbers of goods X and goods Y that we can produce given that everything is in efficient situation. For example, due to scarcity, we can only produce 60 goods X and 90 goods Y, or 95 goods X and 40 goods Y. We cannot produce like 90 goods X and 90 goods Y because we don't have enough resources. But the points on the curve is only attainable if the employment and productivity is on the maximum level, meaning that there is no unemployment, and we cannot put a point outside of the curve because we cannot make things already better than they are theoretically. that is efficiency. So now that we are done with the terms that are related to 10 basic principles of economics, now we are going to move to 3 basic economics questions. They are what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. My, in this whole world with limited resources, what should I produce? Well, we need to think about this because our resources are scarce and we cannot produce everything we want in this world. There are also other factors such as competition, rising prices that might affect the answer to these questions in order for producers to make products that will give them more profit. So the next question is how to produce. So producers also need to consider what kind of factors of production shall they use to manufacture their goods or services to produce the best product to attract customers in order to gain revenue. So for example, maybe they want to use labor or they want to use machines. So the last question is for whom to produce. As we have limited resources, producers also can only produce limited products. So now they should consider their demographic target. Should I make my product a limited item? Should I make my product expensive so that only the elites can buy it? So these questions makes the market work and they encourage competition between the producers and they keep people's self-interest in check. Moving on, we are going to talk about the factors of production. Factors of production meaning how do you want to produce your goods and services. I always use the acronym LLEC to remember it. It stands for land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. For example, land provides you with trees and cows, and from the cows you can produce and sell milk. You can also use your capital to buy machines and produce maybe almond milk, vegan milk, or other substitute milk in the market. So this LLEC stuff produces goods for consumer, or you can say it is inputs used in the production of goods and services. And next, we have 2 very simple words. The first is division of labor. Division of labor is the separation of a work process into a number of tasks, with each task performed by a separate person or group of persons. Division of labor also might include automation and machineries. And the next word is market. Market is simply the place of interaction between producers and consumers to facilitate the exchange or transaction of goods or services. And now we are going to talk about economy system. There are 3 of them. The first one, free market economy. Second one, centrally planned economy. And the last one is traditional economy. All these 3 economic system answers the basic 3 economic question: who to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce very differently. Let us begin with free market economy. Free market economy is an economic system where laws of supply and demand become the drivers of the market without any government intervention. Free market economy is, well, free. People are free to produce and consume, so we say that they are driven by their self-interest but also guided by price. We can say that people always search for the best satisfaction for the lowest price. Government here plays the role of protecting consumers' welfare by introducing laws, impose taxes, and regulates price. This free market economy is also known as capitalism. And now, moving on to centrally planned economy. Centrally planned economy is an economic system where the government becomes the decision maker. The laws of supply and demand becomes obsolete here. Now, because centrally planned economy is the polar opposite of free market economy, everything concerning the economy is controlled by the government. There is no self-interest, no pricing mechanism here, just a government rationing goods for every household to protect their welfare. Everyone here is the same, but the thing is, this economy is not motivating people to work, and there is no competition in the market, which means less creativity. Centrally planned economy is also known as communism. When we talk about communism, Soviet Union comes to our mind, but other countries also practice this economic system. For example, China previously adhered to the system, but they opened their door once they found that the free market economy is more profitable than the centrally planned economy. Other countries such as Cuba, Vietnam, and North Korea are also communist countries to some degree. And then we have traditional economy. Traditional economy is an economic system based on customs, belief, and family. So these three things can affect economic decisions such as what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. It is very important to note that traditional economy is never adapted on a national level. Even in Malaysia, before the British came, we were almost all farmers, and we did farming as a self-sufficient economic activity. We only make food for ourselves and not for business. And when there is surplus, it is given to neighbors and close people. Well, now we are done talking about economy system. Let us talk about economy sectors. What are economy sectors? Economy sectors are fancy grouping of type of economic activities. There are primary economy sector, secondary economy sector, and tertiary economy sector. Primary economy sector are economic activities that are concerned with extraction of raw materials, for example, farming, mining, and fishing. While secondary economy sector as economic activities that are concerned with the transformation of raw or intermediate materials into goods that are ready to be consumed by the consumer. So for example, automobile industry, the textile industry. And then lastly, we have tertiary economy sector. Tertiary economy sectors are economic activity that are concerned with catering services to consumer. Tertiary economy sector is also known as service sector. So for example, the cosmetic industry like going to the salon or spa, also included are airlines or tourism industry. They don't sell you anything, they just sell you their skills. So you can see how these three sectors are related to each other. Let us take a product, for example, Mr. Potato. To produce Mr. Potato, potatoes are grown in a farm. So this is the primary sector. Then the potatoes are brought to the factory to be fried and seasoned. So this is the secondary sector. And lastly, it is brought to the supermarket. And once you have paid the Mr. Potato to the cashier, it becomes a tertiary economy sector activity because the supermarket doesn't make the delicious crispy Mr. Potato. They're just selling you their service. Well, now that we are done with economy sectors, let's talk about goods, shall we? Well, the definition of economic goods are goods that are useful and face scarcity. Well, public goods are goods that doesn't have rivals in the market and doesn't have any excludability, meaning that you cannot bar these people, you cannot avoid these people from using the goods. Examples include infrastructures such as airports, hospitals, dams, lampposts. In contrast, private goods are goods that have rivals in the market and they have excludability. You can avoid people from enjoying these goods in the sense that people need to pay for the good first before they use them. Private goods are scarce and people might compete for it. Examples include pretty much everything you see on the supermarket shelves. Well, we are done with the first pair of goods, but there's also another pair, normal and inferior goods. Normal goods are goods that increase in demand once income increases, while inferior goods are goods that increase in demand when income decreases. So there's usually pairs of normal and inferior goods. So for example, early in the month you go to Starbucks, but then at the end of the month you resorted to drink Nescafe instead. So other example would be chicken chop and instant noodles, Ferrero Rocher and Cadbury. This is a very easy concept to understand. And our last pair of goods are merit goods and demerit goods. Well, merit goods are goods that produce a positive outcomes. Say, eating vegetables makes you healthy and education makes us, well, educated. And demerit goods are complete opposite. They are goods that produce a negative outcome. So for example, video games, excessive fast foods, alcohol, and tobacco. Let us now move on and talk about terms relating on how markets work. So how does markets work? Markets work on a concept known as invisible hand. This concept is introduced by a Scottish economist, Adam Smith. It is a metaphor for the unseen forces that move the free market economy. Competition between production and the laws of supply and demand causes economy to be self-correcting. Remember the free market economy we talked earlier? In free market economy, people are free to produce and trade. This in turn produces competition. Producers will fight to get customers, and consumers will always try to find the lowest prices. So through the concept of invisible hand, producers will choose to produce efficiently to maximize profits, and sellers who put high prices are forced to decrease their price in order to gain customers, because customers will always try to find the lowest prices. This is how the market is self-correcting and will keep prices in check. So now let's talk about rational people. Well, rational people are people who make a decision that provides themselves with the greatest utility. This means people who take action and make decisions that brings them the most satisfaction. Well, we all have wants, but it's all news that we don't always get what we want. But in economics, we usually assume that consumers are rational people. Now let us talk about market power, shall we? Market power is defined as the ability of a firm or a company to influence the price at which it sells a product or service to increase economic profit. We say firm and companies here and not the whole market itself, because each firm and companies are free to price their products as they want to. So let us take Apple for example, the tech company. For example, in 2016, iPhone 7 was released at a price tag of $799 in the US. But the next year, the successor of iPhone 7, iPhone 10, was released at a record-breaking price of 1,000 US dollars or 5,000 ringgit. However, people still buy iPhone 10 and it became the highest selling phone in 2017. Can you see? Apple is able to influence its price to the point that even though it is very expensive, profit would still come in. So we talk about market power, now let's talk about market failure. Market failure is the inefficient distribution of goods and services in the free market. So in other words, the true cost of a good is not reflected in the selling price, meaning the prices in the market is haywire. For example, in countries with high inflation rates such as Zimbabwe and Venezuela, where bread can cost you trillions of dollars, there are many causes of market failure. For example, abuse of monopoly power and lack of public goods. Let us talk about law of demand. It is very simple and logical. Law of demand states that the higher the price of a good, the lower the quantity demanded for the good. Notice that the price is on the y-axis while the demand is on the x-axis on the demand curve. Why does the demand curve downwards? Well, price and demand have an inverse relationship. Just like the law states, as the price is low, people are willing to buy more, and once price increase, people will buy less. It's all logic. So there can be changes on the demand curve, such as expansion or contraction. So a scenario, for example, you love to drink Milo, but suddenly the price of Milo increase. But you don't discard and don't drink Milo at all, don't you? You just buy them less. So we say here, less quantity demanded due to high price will cause the curve to contract. So now let's talk about chicken, shall we? Because the prices is so high right now. Now people won't buy any chicken because of their high price, but imagine if it was the festive season, if Raya was on the corner. We'll still buy the chicken even though the price is high because of the festivities factor. So here we say festivities are determinants of demand other than price. Note that the y-axis on the demand curve is still price and the x-axis on the demand curve is still demand. So the price is stagnant but demand increases. So determinants other than price will only cause the demand curve to shift, not to expand or to contract. So now let's talk about the relationship between marginal utility and the demand curve. So we have talked about marginal utility before, where the relationship is that as marginal utility with each purchase of a good decreases, people are only prepared to pay less for the same goods. You buy 4 oranges every day for 2 ringgit. So if the price doesn't change, you will keep buying 4 oranges every day, but suddenly if the prices of orange increases, you will buy less oranges because the extra price of the orange does not compensate to the decreasing marginal utility that you get with 1 more orange. Hence, higher price equals to lower quantity demanded. But if the item is cheap, people are ready to throw their money and quantity demanded will increase. Because it is a good trade-off, the marginal utility is higher than the price. And as we look back at the demand curve, when the quantity demand is high, the price is always low and vice versa. So there will always be that relationship of marginal utility and demand. Alright guys, well, I hope everyone enjoyed this video and I hope Sahalim will give me a high marks. Have a nice day everyone. Assalamualaikum.